Okay, aside from Raul as the star of the show, we have illegal fireworks, which brings up the most passionate discussions of all of our common problems that I've heard lately. From my own experience, even after Super Bowl, I was like, there they go again. Any reason for a celebration, or sometimes not even a reason. So I'm gonna turn it over to Don Gagliardi. Jeff Levine had hoped to come, but I don't see him here as yet. Jeff has taken some spectacular videos of illegal fireworks in his neighborhood, which comes pretty close to rivaling some professional shows. So,
maybe it'll show up a little later.
okay.
I handed out a copy of a memo, so many of you have it. If you did not get a copy of this memo from Sam Ricardo, maybe the council person, let me know, raise your hand. I'll see how many more I have. Let me give you a couple. You guys can share, because I think we're.
And I can share mine, because I can probably
20 of
look it
these,
up.
and we're running low.
Thank
You
you.
guys might want sharing.
Oh, yes.
Debbie.
Thank you, Don.
D. Oops. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
And Kathy.
Oh, I'll grab this one.
Yeah, go ahead, grab that one. Who did not get one? Got a couple more. Did I get everyone? Scott, did you get one?
I've read
So who, I've got one more, if anyone didn't get it. All right, I'll leave it up front. So, yeah, so there are a couple more in case people show up. So this is, topic is illegal fireworks, and I'm here representing a sort of informal group of residents throughout D3, and I know Trudy's here from D5, and we were supposed to have somebody here from D7 for tonight's meeting, but I don't see anyone. And the idea is to coalesce neighborhood people from across D3 and ultimately across the city to help get an administrative citation ordinance passed. And the reason I've handed out this memo is that this outlines to some extent the idea of what we're going after. So when Sam Ricardo was our council person last summer, you'll see this memo is dated August of 2014, he proposed the idea of an administrative citation system to help combat the illegal fireworks. So what we have now is essentially a criminalization process which requires the police to actually observe the criminal behavior to be able to deal with it. And so it's very hard to get a conviction for folks who are using illegal fireworks in our neighborhoods. So the idea is if we can broaden the array of folks who can make citations, and these are not fully criminal citations, but they're administrative citations, this is part B under the first paragraph, talks about delegating the authority for issuance of the citations to the city manager to include code enforcement officers, park rangers, community service officers, the CSOs, which are not full-fledged sworn badge officers, and/or building officials. So that broadens the number of city folks who can issue these citations, and presumably will get more certain enforcement of the regulations against these illegal fireworks. They are illegal now, so when you hear these illegal fireworks, it's not that there ought to be a law against them. The question is, how can we better enforce it? And this is not a silver bullet, a panacea that's going to solve everything, but it's a piece of the puzzle and one that we can work on and make some progress on. So the reason I'm here, and I intend to go to some other similar organizations across the city. So the D3 CLC is similar to neighborhood leader groups in various districts around the city. And the idea is to build a groundswell of support across the city for when ultimately this issue is going to come to the fore. And it's been explained to me, and that you'll see in the first sentence of the memo here from Sam, by means of the priority setting process, this priority setting session process. So this is going to come through a priority setting session through the city manager's office at a date which we don't know yet, but we're told maybe in April. And the idea is what becomes a priority is very much the squeaky wheel process. So issues that you have a lot of residents come out in person to say we consider this important becomes elevated. and therefore it is important politically. I think this will ultimately be non-controversial, and if we can get it going, the council will get behind it unanimously or virtually unanimously. But we need to show that we consider this important. A lot of people in our neighborhoods complain about it, but they don't show up. And so I'm trying to get a coalition of people who will actually show up at the priority setting session when we find the date and to be ready to be there. So the purpose here is mostly educational. Keep your ear to the ground. When we tell you when the date is, try to make it. It may be during the day. It may require taking time off of work to be there. I will do my darndest to be there, and frankly, if we want this to happen, we need everyone else to consider it a priority in their lives. So that's it in a nutshell. I won't entertain questions. I will simply say this, a couple things. One, I'm not the expert on this, and I'm not leading this effort. Suzanne Marone, who is a Northside resident on North 17th Street, has been leading the charge and doing a great job of bringing people together and dealing with the illegal fireworks issue. This is only one part of what is going to be a larger effort to combat this problem. But it is important that we let people know about this initiative and know to mark your calendars when the word comes out and the date comes out, to be there in person and say this issue is of concern to us, and we think the administrative citation ordinance is part of the process. I'll let Raul say a few words, but I know he's supportive. He was in the meeting earlier. And then I'll entertain any questions if you have. Raul?
Yeah, so I'll tell you where it left off last year. In the budget priority setting process, basically, there's a number of items, 25, 30, 50, sometimes items that come to council, and then we prioritize them. And the ones that take the highest priority actually will get addressed in the budget. And so where this fell off last year is it only had 4 votes. Oddly enough, it wasn't these 4 council members. Pete opted not to vote for it as a priority, and I think Canson Chu did. So, but it still only had 4. So that's where it sort of died, and I think the reason is because the emphasis was really out of D3, it was out of here. And so what, the coalition decided was, well, we obviously need to get other council districts now as part of the conversation. So that's what they're trying to do. That's what this is about. This is what having D5 here. And then that's what having community members show up, and not just D3 community members, having community members from the rest of the city show up and say this is important to us. And that's really where it'll happen, because ultimately I'm only one vote in it, and we need to, if it's going to be a priority for the whole city, on changing an ordinance like this that affects the whole city, then you will need, more council members to make it a priority. And so that's where it, sort of lost steam last year. And I think that to the extent of how you can get the message out, it could end up being a priority this year. And it actually, with the 4 votes last year, was the second most priority. So second highest priority, even with the 4 votes. So it's not like it was, not a priority, just it didn't, it didn't strike everyone's chord. So.
Question, if it makes the priority setting, does that guarantee devoting some resources to doing this and changing it, or what?
I'd like to say yes, but I would probably want to double check that statement with the city manager's office. But from my current understanding, the answer is yes. Makes that priority, it then becomes part of the budget for now. That's one of the issues that gets added into our sort of top issues for the year, which I imagine maybe there's flexibility there for when
we might have to come back to persuade them to keep it on the budget, to have it put in this way.
Potentially, yeah. I would say that it at that point, it gives it a good guarantee that you're going to have this now as be part of the process, but to maybe see it through year after year, as well as what it looks like, because then city staff could get involved. And if it looks like we're trying to have, administrative citations be handed out by, parking, parking meter or code enforcement, they may have some pushback and say, we don't have enough staff, so sure you can put the policy in, but we're gonna need that extra funding maybe to actually be able to implement something like this. So that's where I think the follow-up would be. But once we make it a priority and once it's passes that level,
First things first.
now it's part of now it's on the table, so.
The first step is to actually draft the ordinance, which requires city resources to do that. And then Roland makes a good point about the implementation. We can empower code enforcement officers to do this, but we know they're not citing people for existing things. Yes.
So I have a clarifying question, and I also have just a general statement to the group as an FYI. So my question is, I didn't think per Fred Buzo that it was going to go to the priority setting session. Has that been updated?
Yes, that's what actually Jean just handed me. March 7th is the date. It doesn't have a time yet.
March
The priority
7th.
setting?
No, that's the neighborhood priority.
For the neighborhood, so, yeah. Not the actual one where we're.
Not the council one, yeah.
Yeah, not the council one, but where Sam is inviting neighborhoods to come in and voice their concerns. So that's actually a good first step to be able to have this there.
Right, so my question is.
It's here at City Hall, but it doesn't state exactly.
My question is, when the group met, the illegal fireworks group met, one of the things I was supposed to do was reach out to Fred to ask him when the date was of the priority setting session. His email was that he was going to try to pull it from the priority setting session and actually get it before council so that we didn't have to go through this exercise, and I was just wondering if that's been updated.
So I have no word to stand down on what I'm doing. So not only am I
Okay.
appearing here, but I'm going to other
Okay.
leadership groups across the city.
Okay.
So that's great if we preempted and we fast-tracked it, but I'm not going to depend on that.
Okay.
I want to marshal support and let everybody know that if we need you for a priority setting session, when we give the word, this is the date and time.
Okay.
People show up.
And then just, I wanted to make a comment. One of the things that happened last year was, and you may remember, maybe you guys went, there was the fireworks display back in Discovery Meadows or whatever. And Sam Liccardo came to the Arts Commission meeting to talk about this, and one of the reasons is because the money, part of the money came out of the arts budget. It was $30,000 that came out. And we had a conversation about whether or not this would maybe curtail some of the illegal fireworks activity. And just from a personal standpoint, it sure didn't seem like it worked. And frankly, I love, having community gatherings, but I'm personally against spending another $30,000 that could go to the arts on a bunch of fireworks that are an environmental nightmare. But that is my own, soapbox. So I just wanted to put that out, that there's a way you have to pay for it. But the Rotary did step up, and they also put in some money, and I don't know how much. But it was definitely a collaborative effort to try to bring back this wonderful festivity that people really love, and see if maybe it curtailed it a little bit.
Trudy, did you want to say something?
I did, because this is the first time that I've seen this memo, and I want to speak to the implementation part of it, and I'm not quite sure how that discussion and how that actually manifests itself. But one of the things that I see here, and based on what I learned a year ago from our own SJPD, in terms of issuing the citations, I don't see that happening, real time. Given the fact that the SJPD don't feel that they're empowered enough or that they're comfortable enough going down a block where you've got 20 people shooting off, these bombs and the like. So that kind of concerns me, is that how are we actually going to implement that? One of the things that D5 had been advocating for, is as we do code enforcement today, if I want to report that you have weeds in your yard, I do that.
How did you know?
I do that. And you get a letter that essentially says, it's been reported you have weeds in your yard, please fix it. And that's what we've hopefully been advocating for, is that we could report fireworks users and abuse in the same manner, so that at least these people who are allegedly offenders will know that people are watching and know that there's potential for them to be fined and cited.
Yep, good points. Love it.
It was the rain that got the weeds to growing overnight. My question is on abatement. And it's really amazing to refer to this as fireworks. Because in our neighborhood, there are like concussion bombs that break windows and the like. And in Oakland, they've used those sensors, you know, that they can identify, you know, particular areas, guns as well. Shot fires. Is that a part of the abatement process that they're talking about?
They intend to do that as well, and if you read the memo, the contemplation here is that there would be larger fines for more significant ordinance. Let me just say this, that, and it's important to realize this, the ordinance has not even been drafted, and part of this process is to get city staff to spend their time, and part of the budget process is how are they allocating their time, because the time of city employees is money, to actually draft the ordinance. And you make some fair points about how we go about doing this and how we would create an ordinance that actually would likely be implemented and effective. But we're at a preliminary step where we just want to get movement on this in any fashion or at all. And we may decide as we go along that maybe we implement, get some residents involved in the drafting process. And certainly be at any sort of public comment sessions about the proposed ordinance and so forth. But we're at a very preliminary stage at priority setting. As Ronald said, it didn't reach that level, even though the council realizes this is a problem. They haven't recognized it as a sufficiently significant problem that we as residents at ground level see it. And it's in part because our neighbors, although they're complaining about this, my email group that blows up right around 4th of July every year, they don't show up for meetings. And so we need to let the city council and the city staff know this is a real significant priority. And that's all I'm asking for right now. All these are good comments, and anybody who's really interested in this, there are regular meetings of this sort of informal group. It has a name, which I've forgotten, but it really has no formal corporate existence, but it's just a coalition of concerned residents around this issue. And this is only one piece of what we'll try to do, take other steps to combat this issue. But this is something very concrete, part of the political process, where mobilization of residents will really help this issue.
Great. Question?
How are we gonna find out, how are you gonna relay back to us when the meeting is?
I'm gonna tell Joan, who's gonna send it out to everybody who's on this email. So if you're signed in on the sign-up sheet
Right,
here,
yeah.
and you're part of CLC, you will know. Hopefully we'll send it out to various other neighborhood lists and the like, but one way is to get tapped into this group, because Joan will know and it'll come out. So I'll send the alarm through Joan to be relayed to everybody.
Any other questions for either Dawn or Trudy?
So can I say one other thing?
Sure.
So ShotSpotter was mentioned, and for those who are not aware of what ShotSpotter is, it is it's a program that I believe it was the city of Oakland used at some point to identify specific areas where there is, you know, loud noises. In fact, supposedly it can even spot a car backfire. So it's pretty precise. And I know that the city of San Jose did look into it, and they chose not to use it for whatever reason. So I'm hoping after we do the coalescing of community that we can maybe revisit some of the options, because I'm not satisfied this is not a good way to spot where hot spots are so that we can deploy the correct resources. Just a thought.
Okay. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I'd like to briefly stray from the agenda as far as Don's mentioned that I could send out a notice to the group. When I became chair and I asked about communications, I was told pretty darn clearly that nobody wanted to get inundated with a bunch of stuff from me. So I do occasionally get stuff for distribution, and in the fairness to all, I have not been forwarding them unless it's something that this group has already currently been working on. So I need to ask you guys again, are you okay with getting public announcements, ideas, meeting dates from other districts, other district leadership groups, messages? Because I was told you can remind us of the meeting 2 weeks out, you can send us the agenda a week ahead of time, but otherwise pretty much don't blanket us with emails. So I need to do a kind of a temperature check of the group as to whether you can see it's from me and choose to look and delete, or choose to delete without looking, or if you are truly interested, because I really don't want people to see my name in their email inbox and go, oh crap, what does she want now? You know? So just a quick show of hands, who would like, no, fireworks, I think because everybody's here, that's a no-brainer. But as far as other general announcements that I'm asked to share, would you like the opportunity to see that and pick and choose what you want to pay attention to? Pete and then Richard.
Joan, can we push this down to the last item at 7:05? Because we redone the Yahoo groups with this
That would
kind of
be-
thing in mind,
That would be
actually.
a perfect time to do that. Okay, so we have Richard, Antonina, and Imelda. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Pete just asked us.
I'll wait till then.
Okay, all right. So, under